Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blob, where we say, why does this timeline feel like a really bad episode of Miami Vice? Oh my golly, this is a really bad episode of the 1980s Miami Vice, only with GPUs and artificial intelligence. So, Commerce Secretary Lutnick is basically coming out and saying that he wants China addicted to American artificial intelligence. Because, that's how our economic strategy works in 2025 in the United States. So one of the things I've been talking about for a while is the whole idiocy of the export control programs and such, trying to prevent China from getting our artificial intelligence, both our hardware and our software. You had the Biden administration put in something called the AI diffusion rule to prevent China from being able to purchase, high quality AI, GPUs, and that type of thing. He was actually already also thinking about doing export controls literally on models, files that you can download. He thought an export control on that would work, which just shows you why really old people should not be present in the United States. Anyways, right, this has continued forward, and under the Trump administration, there's this whole idea if we want to make sure that China man doesn't have our AI in their pocket, and this idiocy is just continuing. The problem is just a dumb policy. As I say, don't be racist, but if you are going to be racist, be effective. Here's the thing, we can kneecap Kenya. I'm sorry, Kenyans, but it's true. If we told Kenya, you don't get no more AI, Kenyans might be pissed, but they're basically not going to get any more AI. That's kind of how it works, right? Here's the thing. China is not, in fact, Kenya. You might actually try to explain this to some of our government officials, right? One of the largest populations in the world, second largest economy in the world, factory to the world, the whole nine yards. So if we tell them that they're not going to get access to our artificial intelligence, then they just decide to start building their own. Jensen Huang has talked about this, CEO of Nvidia, where China alone, just China, has 50% of the AI researchers in the world. So you have Huawei creating AI hardware. You have LLM models and other AI models that are dropping damn near every other week that are basically open source. And so I think the administration, the government is starting to realize, look, if you try to prevent China from getting our AI hardware and software, they're just going to build their own. And then in 10 years, we are going to be an irrelevancy. And so things going the way they do in 2025 under the Trump administration, apparently what is now happening is that they are loosening up the export controls so that Nvidia can sell China their quote-unquote fourth best chip. And I want to talk about this a little bit because it shows you the idiocy of our political class. It shows you our political class has no fucking clue what the hell is going on and why these policies are just so absolutely god-awful. What in God's name does the fourth best AI chip actually mean? One of the things I talk about with artificial intelligence, and whether you're talking about software, whether you're talking about hardware, or whatever else, is what functionality are you looking for? It's really interesting right now, right? So training models. Training models requires high-powered GPUs, AI processors in order to be able to do it in a rather timely manner, right? So Nvidia has their Blackwell chipset that's come out, and so if you're going to be training large models, you would probably want to buy those Blackwell GPUs, and they cost up to $40,000 just for the GPU. Not the server, just the GPU. You have maybe multiple GPUs in one server. A single server in the rack might be $200,000. And you may have racks and racks and racks and racks and racks of servers, right? But here's the thing. In order to train models, it requires a tremendous amount of hardware resources. On the other hand, there's inference, right? So when I talked about this, where there's a company called Grok, G-R-O-Q, not G-R-O-K. creativity has left the tech world. So GROQ, basically they're creating their own processors, they're creating their own data centers, and the idea is that they say they're not competing with Nvidia because they're not competing on creating chips that can train models. They are basically in the market for inference. Basically, the idea of their chips are able to run models. So they're producing their own processors. They cost a hell of a lot less. They can actually build out their entire data center. I talked about this before, something like 5 weeks from when they decided to do it to when they had customers was something like 5 weeks, because the reality is in 2025, I don't want to say inference is trivial. Again, there's a scale. So when we talk about technology projects, there's trivial and non-trivial, right? Setting up a print server is trivial. Setting up massive AI data center is non-trivial. It takes a lot of work, right? So I don't want to say creating an inference data center is trivial, but in this world that we're in, it's the AI equivalent of trivial, right? You need a shit ton, you need a lot of money, but as long as you've got a lot of money, you've got some pretty skilled people, you can actually do it relatively easily. And why this comes up is, again, when we talk about artificial intelligence, what I hate about this subject is people just say AI, Eli, AI, and then they just stop and walk away. I mean, yeah, but what are we talking about with AI? Are we talking about language processing? Are we talking about computer vision? Are we talking about some kind of database stuff? Are we talking about there's a lot of stuff that goes with AI, and with that stuff, right? There's training and there's inference. There's all kinds of, we had Contextual, the CEO of Contextual AI. They're a $100 million AI company, and all they fucking do is RAG, day in and day out. RAG is retrieval augmented generation, and their thing is they have an incredible RAG system. Does Letnick even know what the fuck RAG is? And if he started explaining to you, would it be a little like, no, that's not what we're talking about, motherfucker, right? And the issue is when we talk about this stuff, and we talk about AI, and we talk about resources, talk about hardware, talk about software, what are we talking about? Because, this is a curious thing to consider. So if we sell China the fourth best chip, right? What has the best ROI for China? Is it training or is it inference? Right? If inference requires a hell of a lot less resources than training, can you have data centers that train drones? Right? So we don't want China to get AI because we don't want them to have AI powered drones. Well, here's the thing. Let's say for training, you need Blackwell or whatever else, but for inference, you need this fourth best thing. Can they buy a shit ton of Nvidia low-tier GPUs to use as inference on their autonomous drones? They train the models in some other data center somewhere, and then take those models, dump them into the drone, and the inference is able to occur on the Nvidia processors, right? These are the things to consider. If you give them the fourth best AI chip, so let's say it takes longer, right? Let's say you're going to create a model. So if you have the Blackwell chips, you can train the model in a day. In about 8 hours, let's just say 8 hours, you can train a model. With the second best chips, I don't know, maybe 24 hours you could train a model. With the third best chips, maybe 72 hours you could train the model. With the fourth best chips, I don't know, whatever, 5 days. Now let's just put this out there, right? Let's just say you go from a day of training to 5 days of training. Who cares? Who gives a shit? Like if they can buy the better GPUs so they can increase the speed of training, that's fine. But on the scale of things, if you say, oh, we're going to make it so instead of training, it takes a day, instead of it taking a day to train a model, it now takes 5 days to train a model. I'm going to explain something to you. It's called a calendar. I don't think the Trump administration understands a fucking calendar. Here's the deal. in 6 days, they're still going to have a model. Here's the thing. If you start training on Monday and you have the best Blackwell GPUs out there, right? Or if you start training on Monday with the 4th best AI chips and it takes 5 days, either way, you're going to have a model by Saturday. To be clear, are you holding them back? Yeah, maybe. Again, maybe. It may be if the numbers actually work out that particular way. But at the end of the day, in 6 days, they're still going to have the model. And I think this is the real thing where we need to be talking about when we talk about trying to contain artificial intelligence and we talk about our policies, especially towards other countries with export controls and the rest of it. Why I talk about this functionality and resources and so on and so forth is the whole question of, is it creating the actual outcome that you expect it to create? And I think with a lot of these policies, it's not. I think we have really old, really stupid people that have no concept what this technology actually does. You have people like Sam Altman who really just desperately needs as much blood money as he can possibly get his hands on. So basically, he's coming out with these bombastic statements about AI being more dangerous than nuclear weapons, and this gets turned into absolutely abjectly absurd policy that's not going to get us anywhere. But anyways, that's just my opinion. So from CNBC, Commerce Secretary Lutnick says China is only getting Nvidia's, quote, 4th best AI chip. What's happened? Lutnick. Have you heard Lutnick speak? He just seems like just a B-class actor from Better Call Saul or something. You're just like, oh. Idiocracy was a cautionary tale, not a blueprint. Anyways, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, who does not know a goddamn thing about the world of technology, on Tuesday said the Trump administration reversed course on allowing Nvidia to sell its AI chips to China because a U.S. company will not be giving over its best technology. And really think about that, because that's a big thing with the Trump administration, right? Best! We have the best, right? European beef is weak, right? That came out of Lutnick's mouth. I couldn't make that shit up. If I was like, you know what, I want to make Lutnick sound stupid by saying that he said European beef was weak, and people are like, man, Eli, dude, that's just dumb. Nobody would say, who says European beef is weak? That doesn't even make sense. Like, European beef isn't as nutritious. European beef, doesn't have as much iron in it. Right? Who the hell says European beef is weak? Lutnick does. Lutnick does. Lutnick made the remark speaking with CNBC's Brian Sullivan, saying Nvidia wants to sell China its, quote, 4th best chip, which is slower than the fastest chips that U.S. companies use. Okay, it's slower. From a practical standpoint, what does that mean? Quote, we don't sell them our best stuff, not our 2nd best stuff, not even our 3rd best, right? This is very the Trump administration. We are strong. So it's not how technology works. Nvidia said Monday night that it would soon resume sales of the H20 chip to China after the Trump administration signaled that it would grant the chipmaker necessary export licenses. Lutnick said the administration said that the renewed sale of H20 chips to China was linked to a rare earths magnet deal. He said it was in U.S. interest to have China companies using American technology so they continue to use an American, quote, tech stack. Yes, this is what I've argued about before, is there are different tech stacks. We are forcing them to create their own AI tech stack that they're going to deploy to the world. The question is going to be, do you want to build on the China stack or do you want to build on the United States stack? My argument is, I think the China stack sounds like a better deal for a lot of folks. And so this is the idea to try to keep them into the American tech stack ecosystem. But the other thing you have to be thinking about here is if you are broadcasting to the world that you're selling China subpar AI hardware, how married to that tech stack are you gonna be, right? That's the other thing to be thinking about, like as a technology professional, right? We talk about legacy, right? Once something gets installed into your infrastructure, it's never gonna go away. But here's the thing. When you're building out your infrastructure, there is the permanent infrastructure and then there's the temporary infrastructure. And many times, temporary infrastructure sometimes you build out because it's literally temporary, right? You just bring some servers in, you spin them up, make sure they're running while you're doing whatever work needs to be done, and then you rip them out again. But then there's also like quasi, temporary infrastructure where you went out to buy equipment. So let's say you try to go out and buy hardware during the COVID crisis, and you couldn't buy what you wanted, right? You wanted NetApp SANs, or you wanted a specific type of SAN or storage solution, and you just couldn't get your hands on it, right? The fact of the matter is you couldn't. So you needed to store more data. You needed a storage arrays, but you couldn't buy the storage arrays you wanted. So you go out and you buy the best storage arrays you can. Here's the thing. There's something called a refresh cycle in the tech world. So the refresh cycle is your plan for pulling out old equipment as you install new equipment. So a refresh cycle. Well, the thing is where I talk about like with quasi temporary equipment is if you had to purchase equipment that you didn't want to purchase to begin with, you know that there was better equipment out there, you just couldn't get your hands on it. Basically, that quasi temporary stuff that you put into your infrastructure, that's going to be the first on the pallets to get chucked out the door and basically go through the refresh cycle. It's really interesting. Like when you go through big technology companies, especially back in the day, man, they would have small warehouses just full of fucking equipment that had come into the data center and then got shoved back out the data center, right? And so what's curious here, right, is this idea is Lutnick is coming in as a strong American that eats strong beef. And he's telling that Chinaman, you're going to get subpar equipment. I want you to understand our equipment is subpar, right? Taking that Chinaman's head and shoving it in to that subpar equipment. Now here's the thing, if you're a Chinese person and the strong American eating strong beef literally shoves your nose into the fact that that you're buying subpar equipment, how long do you want that equipment to be in your infrastructure? Even if you need it now, right? That's the thing about the technology world. We are a pragmatic people, right? You need to store data, you need to store data. You need so many servers, you need so many servers. So you will spin up the resources required. Doesn't necessarily mean you're happy about it. And so if they spin up those resources now, because they do need them, are they going to be the first to get ripped out as soon as there's another option on the table, right? How much do you invest? So we talk about that with institutional knowledge, right? So if I'm running a technology organization, one of the most important things is institutional knowledge. How do I upskill my employees to make sure that they can support our systems? And so with that, a lot of it goes into training. Who's going to get trained? Who's going to get hired? The whole 9 yards. If I am in a country and I know I'm getting subpar equipment and I know I will most likely forever get subpar equipment, how much do I want to upskill my employees on that type of equipment? Now, again, we're pragmatic, right? You need to have a bare minimum number of employees be upskilled to the point that they can support that equipment. But that doesn't mean you have to create a surplus of that skill, right? If you're sitting there like, we know we're always gonna get the shit into the stick with this, I'll make sure my employees are up to the bare minimum level to make sure everything functions, and then I'll upskill my people on the Chinese systems that are coming down the pike in a couple of years. Remember, when we talk about these Chinese AI, right? I mean, the best case scenario, depending on who you are, is that it's 2 years behind. Right, and that's best, right? There's a lot of argument even now that the Huawei chips that are coming out are as good as Nvidia chips. Simply, they use more electricity. Oh no, they use more electricity. Oh, too bad, China, man. Your society was going to advance into the modern world, but your processors just use too much electricity, and we know you won't let yourselves advance if you use too much electricity. So anyway, right? This stuff is already on the horizon. So why as a Chinese company would you not be investing in the institutional knowledge for the Chinese equipment? Right? Why would you do that? No, not do that. So anyways, quote, the fourth down, we want to keep China using it, Lutnick said. We want to keep having the Chinese use the American technology stack because they still rely upon it. They might be using it, but how much are they going to rely on it? Quote, the idea is the Chinese are more than capable of building their own, Lutnick said. Yeah, no shit, dip fuck. Anyways, quote, you want to keep one step ahead of what they can build, so they keep buying our chips. Maybe. The administration reversed its decision after Donald Trump met with Jensen Huang, Nvidia CEO of Nvidia before, in Washington. Quote, you want to sell the Chinese enough that their developers get addicted to the American technology stack, Lutnick said. That's the thinking. Well, that's thinking. I mean, it's a plan. It's not a good plan. But look at this. And look at how the Trump administration is dealing with the rest of the world. And look at what their public statements are. This is what they're proud to say publicly. He thinks this is a fucking slam dunk, right? He's so stupid, has no idea about the technology world. So he's like, yeah, I'm going to say publicly, we want the Chinese people addicted to the American technology stack. And I'm sure Lutnick has no concept of the opium wars. Probably has no concept of why the Chinese people might look a wee bit askance of being told they're going to be addicted to another country's any fucking thing. So, yeah, that's where we're at. We're opening up our AI hardware in the worst possible way. So, I don't know. We'll see where it goes. I will be curious to see what this actually means from a practical standpoint when you start talking about AI, hardware, and resources and all that kind of stuff. What does it mean to be the fourth worst? Is the fourth worst actually crappy, or is the fourth worst fine? Right? Think about that. Like, you know, I have Macs. And here's the thing, like, it's so funny, like, when you see specs. So I usually buy a new Mac, like, every few years, 3-4 years or something like that. And that's the thing, like, you look at it, and they'll come out with a new Mac, and, you know, there's they're the reviewers, they're the YouTube reviewers out there. And so they'll get the new Mac and the new MacBook Pro from Apple, and they'll be able to do a review on it, right? And so Apple will always give them a high-quality MacBook Pro, so not the lowest-end MacBook Pro, the one that normally costs like $4,000 or $5,000. And it is so interesting. It's so interesting to look at it, and where it'll be like, well, okay, so last year's MacBook Pro, if you try to encode a 4K video, it took 5 minutes to encode the 4K video. This year's MacBook Pro only takes 4 minutes, so it's 1 minute faster to encode a 4K video. And the important thing I want you to understand here is, from a practical standpoint, does that actually matter, right? So if it takes any more than, let's say, 2 minutes to do something, I'm going to go grab a cup of coffee or take a crap. That's what happened. Workflow, right? There's a workflow, right? I hit click. It's like, oh, that's going to take a few minutes. I'm going to go do something else. So when I go take a poop, some days I have enough fiber. Sometimes I don't have enough fiber. You know, that poop is anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes. I don't know how long the poop's going to be. Here's the thing. So if I'm taking a crap for 5 to 10 minutes, does it really matter whether it takes 4 minutes to encode or 5 minutes to encode? If I want a cup of coffee, I don't want to walk upstairs and make a cup of coffee. So I got to walk upstairs. I got to dump the old coffee grounds, all that kind of stuff, put the new coffee in, hit the go button, maybe take Roxy out, take a poo or pee, come back, pour my cup of coffee. From a workflow perspective, how long do you think that takes, right? That doesn't take a minute, doesn't take 2 minutes. And again, that's probably about another 10 minutes. So do you really care whether it takes 5 minutes to encode a video or 4 minutes to encode a video from a practical standpoint? Right? If you go back like 3 years and you buy like a 3 or 4 year old MacBook, maybe that takes 7 minutes to encode a video. Think about it. 7 minutes is a hell of a lot worse than 4 minutes, but from a practical standpoint, does it matter, right? If you're thinking about things like training models, so let's say you're training some smaller models. So let's say throughout the day, the technicians are there, your data people are there, you're cleaning up the data, you're putting everything together to train the model. And then what you're going to do is when you leave at night, when you leave at 9 o'clock at night, right, you're going to hit the start training button. And then when you get in at 9 o'clock in the morning, then you'll get the results. Well, here's the thing. If I wait till 9 o'clock at night to hit the training button, does it really matter to me if it gets done at 1 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning or 8:59 in the morning? Right? If the best Blackwell GPU will do a training run in, let's say, 2 hours, and the fourth best will do the training run in 11 hours. From a practical standpoint, do I care? Do I care? And those are the questions I have with our policies and strategies and all this kind of stuff, is I don't think any of this thinks about the real world of technology and how things are actually done, right? This whole idea of best versus fourth best, that is not a practical definition by any stretch of the imagination. So anyways, that is just my thoughts and my pondering. What do you think about Lutnick? Do you think we should just have a TikTok account just devoted to Lutnick? 30-second clips. Horrifying shit that Lutnick says. Oh, do you ever just watch Lutnick sometimes? And you're just like, who is this guy again? You're like, oh, fuck. I swear, the first time I saw Lutnick, like that was, if you remember, when I was doing videos a while ago, I kept forgetting who the fuck Lutnick was. Just because it feels like you should forget who Lutnick is. Like there's something, like Lutnick is just like this weird, like political black hole. Like you see him, but your brain just instinctively says, this person cannot possibly be important. And just tries to flush them out of your system as quickly as possible. I don't know. How do you feel about Lutnick? Oh, weird stuff. Yeah, put your thoughts down below. Give us a thumbs up, give us a thumbs down, give us an awesome comment or a horrible comment. This is the YouTube world. All that matters is that interaction. Do remember silicondojo.com does exist. We are doing a conversation with David Cox, VP of AI Models over at IBM. We're doing that tomorrow. Well, doing it Thursday, so my timeline is tomorrow. I don't know when you're watching this. We just did a call with Louis Rossman a couple of days ago. So that version of that is now on the YouTube channel. And yeah, that's all I got to say. So anyways, with that, see y'all later.